Good day and welcome to the Big Red 40K channel. My name is Bear and I will be your host today. Today we're going to be discussing the Astra Militarum and how it deserves better, especially from Games Workshop. Better doesn't mean holy rules, it doesn't mean having better stats or better soldiers, though the Astra Militarum desperately is in need of these as well. Better means also the quality of the miniatures that we are provided, as well as the quality of the content that the faction is allowed to have. The lack of an appropriate scout vehicle, though the Sentinel is a component in that, would be a prime example of what I'm talking about. As you can see here, this is a vehicle that used to be on offer from Forge World known as a Tauros. This is the four-wheeled variant. This vehicle was a component of the Elysian Drop Troopers, a range which is no longer supported by Games Workshop. What's interesting about this fits the Imperial Guard's aesthetic much more than something like its cousin, the Sentinel. The Sentinel is an awkward fit for the Guard, given the Guard are supposed to be a quasi-modern military force. There are very few walkers, if I'm not mistaken, in most military forces, and it also kind of lacks as a scout vehicle. It is not nearly as quick as any of its own armored forces, so what could it possibly be scouting? It might be scouting dense terrain for infantry, but that is neither here nor there. It's especially not really relevant to what the army needs on the tabletop either. This isn't to say that the Sentinel should be removed from the range. It has a role in the Imperial Guard army. But something like a fast, light vehicle for scouting, whether that be the four-wheeled or the six-wheeled variants of something like the Tauros, is desperately needed by something like the Imperial Guard. Even, ironically enough, Genestealer cultists with the Ridge Runner, as well as orcs with their war buggies, have this role locked down. And this visual aesthetic is well received inside of the 40k universe by both players and in lore as well. So it means it's very odd for the Astra Militarum to actually not have a component that can perform proper recon activities, especially given the lack of support the range gets, unfortunately. Next on the list, of course, though, we move away from the Elysian drop troops and their Taurus assault vehicles, and we move over to the staple of the Imperial Guard lineup, which is the Leman Russ battle tank. This armor is venerated beyond its station, quite heavily, I would actually argue. This vehicle is, in terms of its visual design, one of the worst ever conceived. Though many players love the Leman Russ battle tank, and it holds a certain place in many players' hearts, it does not actually fit into the design aesthetic of anything. Often those will say, well, it's meant to be badly designed, it's meant to be foolish, or anything along those lines. One must remember that this was not originally designed to be a joke. This was designed to be serious. Games Workshop only recently has had more people on staff who actually know how to design vehicles. You can look at the new Primaris tanks and see vehicles that for the first time are at the very least nominally functionally capable as military vehicles. But the Leman Russ battle tank and its ilk take the cake. I won't go too deep into it, as we may do another video much later in the future about this, but the Leman Russ battle tank effectively can't fire its main gun without killing the gunner and the loader and badly injuring the commander. The Leman Russ battle tank has essentially no point where it is truly a survivable vehicle by any type of even modern anti-tank ammunition, and it is woefully inadequate in terms of its mobile capability based off of its suspension, or lack thereof suspension, and its traversal. It is an awful vehicle by any metric. Even as something as laughably suicidal as the Imperial Guard would view this vehicle as a near insult to anyone who would be ordered to enter it. There are modern vehicles that were made out of scrap that often would outcompete this as a functional battlefield piece. And as the final piece, what's the most important is, in fact, the lack of supported regiments in terms of plastic miniatures from Games Workshop across the range. Next to me, you will see a picture of the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum. This is a list of regiments that were once talked about in the beginning of the 3rd edition rulebook, or from the Astra Militarum Codex, if I remember correctly, from way back in the day. Now, obviously, they've come up with more in the meantime. However, what is very important about this list is that there are essentially no sign of them as models, whether that be the Catachans, or anyone other than the Catachans and the Cadians in terms of plastic support range. Now, one may say that it's because of immense cost. However, when one looks beneath the surface, you begin to realize that immense cost is rather fallacious, because Any Imperial Guard regiment based off of the current series of rules based off of infantry, which are the primary models that would need to be supported, only have 3 kits. And that covers the entirety of their troops, elites, HQs, and heavy support, at least as far as infantry are concerned. Those 3 kits are simply as followed. The standard infantry platoon, i.e. the standard infantry squad. So, a squad of guardsmen, as simple as it comes. Even Krieg at this time have a squad of guardsmen, implying, of course, that they will have support in the future. And it's very likely that they will. A heavy support team, and a command squad. That is it. There is no other major component behind an Imperial Guard infantry force, which means that for Games Workshop to actually properly support the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum, with, you could have 5 regiments and it's only 15 boxes. If we start adding on things like support sprues being included with them to add to vehicles or things like that, perhaps you could creep that number, even with 5 models, up to 20, even with 5 factions, up to 20 box sets. And you must ask yourself this: how many box sets do Blood Angels have? Even how many box sets do Chaos Space Marines have that might differentiate them? We have Thousand Suns, we have Death Guard, we will soon have World Eaters. All of the other armies get some degree of attention, and often in larger quantities and larger formats, whether it be custom vehicles or in additional infantry squads. And the Astra Militarum are left with 6 box sets, 6 humble box sets, 3 from Cadia and 3 from Catacan. Perhaps in the near future we will see that number grow to 9, because it seems very probable that the Death Corps of Krieg will be arriving in plastic, which is more than welcome by myself and by, I'm sure, everyone else, with the exception of some noteworthy figures on the internet, such as Chapter Master Valrak. But looking to the future, well, there is actually some degree of hope. There's things to be looking at on the horizon that may bring the Imperial Guard some degree of glory and some degree of acceptance. One of them is that they are going to be receiving a new battle tank. Most rumors, not just from ones I know, but across the internet, have pointed out a larger heavy tank that is supposed to be an in-between between the Leman Russ battle tank and the Baneblade. I am hopeful that this vehicle will at the very least take some of the tank designs or even tank body plans in mind that were successful from the Second World War or even the Cold War into account, in terms of how the most basic structures of any military vehicle should be working, especially in something like Warhammer 40,000. It doesn't need to be modern, it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to have certain elements of what we know is not a suicidal way to operate or build your vehicle for this vehicle to shine. Next, we are likely to see 2 regiments arrive, either through one being refreshed and one being fully released. As I mentioned prior, Krieg are likely to get at least 2 box sets, and perhaps 3, given that Death Riders have been prominently shown in multiple artwork pieces. So it is possible that we will not only see their infantry, but we will see a heavy support squad, a command team, and of course, the Death Riders of Krieg. That's actually what I expect. I also expect we might even get a special character for them, which would bring their total box sets to 5. If they also get some variant of Stormtroopers, which I very much doubt, but if they were to, that would then bring that number to 6. But with the other one being either revised Catachans, or there are some rumors even pointing towards the Talaran Desert Raiders. I tend to personally believe, though, that it will be a revision of the Catachans. And I do not expect both the Catachans and Kriegers to be released at the same time. They will likely be released in intervals of one another. But with that being said, we can only hope that it is the beginning of a revolution for the Imperial Guard. We can only hope that it is the beginning of a new start for them, so that we can see the greatest and most powerful single military faction in the Imperium of Man, with the barring of the Imperial Navy, the largest military force in the galaxy controlled by humanity, may have the opportunity to regain some of its respect and self-worth. With that being said, if you've enjoyed this content, please, I would ask that you subscribe to the channel. We are doing our absolute best at this time to grow our subscriber count, and we are aiming to get to 1,000 subscribers. We are trying to by the end of the month. Please share this video if you appreciated its quality as well. If you would be so kind also as to like this video if you enjoyed the content within it. With that being said, I have been the Bear. We run live streams every single day, and I hope to see you on one of them. With that, have yourselves a great day, and goodbye.